Welcome back, Kerbonauts. Let's go ahead and see if we can get our satellite build into orbit. In this episode, we'll be going over general flight controls and just basic understanding of the HUD and the keys and what the keys do, and get this thing in orbit. So we already have a build. I already have it on the launch pad, so let's go ahead and load it up on the launch pad. Okay, real quick, flight key or flight keys are T is the SAS module, R is the rocket control system, which turns on and off the rocket control system. I use the rocket control system when I get into the upper atmospheres. The upper atmosphere is thinner, so you don't have any drag or lift, so the wings are completely useless. Now I'm going to turn off the HUD so you can see the wings a little better. You can see they're moving slightly. Now when I turn off the SAS, the stability assist system, it'll stop the wings from moving. So it's actually trying to control the rocket because there's a slight crosswind going across the pad, and the rocket's slightly tipping, so the wings are trying to adjust even though there's no lift or anything. We've got our staging. Let's go through and make sure our staging is the way we want it. We've got the launch stability arms let go, liquid engine fires, solids run out, we drop the solids, liquid runs out, first stage, we drop the first stage, second stage engine ignites, last stage is satellite deployment. So let's go ahead and go through our checklist. Throttle, you can throttle up by using the left shift key. Throttle down is the left control key, left shift key, left control key. Now, if you want to cut throttle immediately, so you can do maneuvers for orbit or rendezvous, you can hit the X key as an X-ray, and X will kill all engines. So that you can see the throttle dropped a lot faster versus doing it manually. Here's manual. Here's using the X key. It's almost instantaneous. It's really helpful if you realize you have just a few drops of fuel left and you need to save it real quick. Hit the X key. You can hit the spacebar key to activate each stage that you have set up. So each time you hit the spacebar, you'll move up into the stages and it'll activate the next stage. So keep your thumbs off the spacebar key. So let's go ahead and throttle up and ignite this. Let's see if we can get into orbit. I usually like putting it around, for right now, let's just put it close to like 75%. We've got the solids are burning with this, and I don't really need to have the gas liquid fuel engine burning that high. These solids will lift the whole thing just fine. So, okay, ready for launch. 3, 2, 1. Now, when I get about close to the halfway atmosphere, first atmosphere, I want to at least tilt the ship close to 10 to 15 degree tilt, traveling east-west. And I'll explain why we go east-west. So we're getting close to the first notch in the first atmosphere. So let's go ahead and start to do our turn. We take off the SAS so we can have free manual control. Move ourselves down that 90-degree line using the ASWD keys and lock it in with the SAS. So now we're at a 15-degree, 10-degree angle going east and west. Our solids have now just burned out. Let those off. Now we have some control on our speed. So least we want to do is be close to about 160, 170 meters a second. If we go any faster than that, the drag that is being applied to the front of our rocket will be so much that we're actually burning more fuel. You just become a point where you get so much wind resistance that you're burning more fuel just to go the same speed. So what you really want to do is to stay around the 170 range till you get past the second atmosphere, and then it's going to gradually climb up to about 200 to 300. We're going to watch our fuel here. We're about halfway through the tank, and we're through our first atmosphere. So when we get through this first atmosphere, I want to be closer to the 50-45, right where this circle is. So let's go ahead and just catch up to that. Lock in. Every now and then, just turn off and on the SAS to help get you stabilized. You start moving around too much, then just hit the SAS, you'll stabilize, and then start the maneuver again. So as I got this time here, I'm going to cut the throttle just a bit to save on fuel. You can see we're about halfway through fuel here. I can turn on the resources by clicking that tab, and you can click on each one of the fuel sections and it'll show you the tanks on the ship. So real quick, this is our vessel. This is pointed down. So the point on this is down. The dot is representing the front of the ship, or our rocket. The circle with the 3 hash marks represents the direction of travel. Now you can see this easier by, we're moving in this direction, as you can see, but our rocket's still pointed in the 45. Rocket's pointed at the 45. Direction of travel is more horizontal. So we're scooting across. Now, at this point, I'm just going to do a quick check and drop the throttle just a bit. I'm going to look at our orbital window. So orbital map window is the M key. Oop, you zoom in and out with the mouse key. Now, see what we got going here is I'm climbing a hill. You can look at it like this. We're climbing the hill. I get to this point, we start to fall down. Now, right now, I can save some fuel. So let's go ahead and cut the engines. I cut the engines. You see this doesn't grow any higher. We're about 60,000 is where we want to be. And we're going all the way up to the top. So right now we're coasting. I cut the engines, and with momentum will carry us up to this point, and then we'll start to fall back down the Kerbal. So let's go ahead and check our fuel. We got a little bit more fuel left. So at this point, we're going to hit about 60,000, which is where we want to be. I'm going to turn on my rockets because the wings don't work in zero space, a vacuum. We need atmosphere for the wings to work. So I turned on the rocket control, which you can see is pushing the end. And what we want to do is be right over our direction of travel. We want to just start picking up speed as fast as possible so we can overshoot our fall. So I'm going to lock that in just above the horizontal line. We're still getting up to our top, so we're saving on fuel a bit here. And then it's going to burn just a little bit using the left shift key to increase the throttle. I'm going to check on our rocket fuel. That's doing pretty good. Now, if I wanted to transfer, I could right-click. You right-click on the module to find out your tank information. You turn off the crossfeed, which means your tank is now shut off, while holding the shift key. No, not the shift key. The tab key, sorry. It's the alt key. In the other tank, you can get the fuel transfer window. And I can transfer fuel from the RCS tank here to the other one. So again, it's right-click to see the tank information. I'll turn off the crossfeed. And then while holding the Alt button and right-clicking again, I can get the transfer window. And you can transfer out to in or in out. So let's check our orbital window and make sure that we're not going to crash. Let's go ahead and kick on our fuel a little more. And I can watch when that big tank burns out, which just did. So let's go ahead and get rid of the liquid fuel stage. This whole stage here. I'm going to cut down the throttle a bit. Eject it. Eject the shielding around the engine. And then kick up the throttle a bit. Get away from that part. That part will fall back. As you can see, that part will follow this path. And then let's just go ahead and kick on the engines pretty good. Remember, the nuclear engine is very fuel efficient. It gives a pretty good punch in the vacuum of space. So we're just going to continue to follow the 90-degree line at about 70 to 60 degrees and keep on burning that, and hopefully this will get all the way around to the other side. We're burning pretty good. I think at this point we can deploy one of the panels. Collect a little bit of energy while we travel. Because don't forget, the nuclear reactor engine requires electricity in order to run. So you got your fuel flow, and then you also have electric that is required to run this. So let's go ahead and check our orbit again. As you can see, it's gradually growing. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and point up a little more. We're going to go ahead and point up closer to 15 degrees. We just got to do these minor adjustments. And what that will do is start to build my altitude back again. As you can see, now the altitude is catching up to me. I'm rebuilding altitude. I was a little bit too far on the downward spiral. You don't want to get past this point. You want to stay as close to the top as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the engines a bit and then just throttle up just a tiny bit and go ahead and move towards our direction of travel. Now what that will do is just increase my speed. I'll somewhat catch up to the top, our atmosphere. Not atmosphere, but their highest altitude. It's about 30,000. That's not too good. Let's go back up. And I'm doing a terrible job at this. As you can see here, I need to point up. I go more towards the top of the ball. If I want to go more at a sideways angle, I go more at the ball. So I want to try and get my direction of travel to start creeping up this way. So let's go ahead and kick the throttle on big time. Let's see if I can get our direction of travel to start going up above the horizontal line. Just slightly doing. I want to keep this still around 60,000. That's the goal. We're still pretty good on fuel. So I still want this around 60,000. So when this hits 60,000 again, I'm going to cut off the engines and coast up to it. We're almost there. We're almost there. You can almost see it's getting there. So like I said, it's kind of like if you're looking at something as far as going uphill, and then once I hit this point, I'll start going downhill. So right now I'm climbing, and that burns a lot of fuel. If I can get more to a point where I'm straight across and horizontal, I hit the gas, I start flying this direction so much you'll see the orbit will start to grow, and then we'll grab it. We'll just achieve the fall rate that we need in order to keep orbit. So we're still around 60,000, which is what I want to be. That'll put you well above the atmospheres. You won't experience any kind of drag. When we were around 30,000 there, we were experiencing a lot of upper atmosphere drag, and that was kind of slowing down our vessel. So right now we want to just wait till we get up to here. So what I can do is use the time warp here, which is using the period and the comma key on the bottom right of your keypad. So the period key moves you up in time warp. It's ×2 in time, and then by using the comma you'll go down in scale. So period 1, 2. Our build isn't that big, so 1, 2, 3. You can see we're moving faster. Our clock is moving faster. And now if you use comma, I'll go down, and now we'll be at real time. So if you really don't want to wait till you get to this point, you can always just fast forward a bit. And as you can see, nothing really changes. It's just fast forwarding the real time, so you don't have to wait. It's helpful when you've got orbits that are a year long. You would hate to have to wait a year to get your orbit done. Now, if you're in any time warp, you lose control over your movement, rocket control, staging, all that. Throttle control. You can't have throttle up while you're in time warp. Now, as you can see, oops, we don't want to go in that direction. We got a little, we kind of drifted off our mark there. So usually after a time warp, you have to basically put yourself into back in line and make sure everything is lined up. I'm now horizontal, a little bit above the horizontal, the equator. I'm going to go ahead and hit the throttle. And let's see if I can get a lower orbit marker. This is my higher orbit marker. And pretty soon, let's go ahead and just kick the gas on a bit. And you'll see as this line connects with the other line, now we have the parallapsis. Now that is showing me the lowest point of my orbit. And I want to get that up to 60, cut the engines. This side is close to 64. So now we've got a pretty even orbit going about 60,000 kilometers above the surface of Kerbal. Let me just go ahead and just take a quick view. As you can see, we're just above the upper atmospheres. And it's okay, it's showing us dropping in altitude, but you remember, one of our orbital markers is lower than the other one. So if you think about it again, as this being top of the hill, we are now falling down the hill to the low point. You get to the low point, we start climbing. Now, consequently, as we drop altitude, the ship will be gaining speed. As you can see, my speed will start to climb as I start to fall down this side. And when I hit this point, will be about as fast as I can travel. And then when I start passing that point, it's an uphill climb. And you start slowing down, and when you get to about this point, it's about as slow as you're going to travel in your orbit. And then you go over the hill and you fall back down. And that's how you have to look at it. Highest orbit is the top of the hill. Lower orbit is the bottom of the hill. So let's go ahead and just snap in a maneuver, and I'm going to go through that stuff real quick here too. So I'm going to shut this just so we don't have to look at it. And don't forget, we've got plenty of monopellant for radio movement. Got about half the tank of fuel, 104 out of 220, 6 units off of half, and we've got orbit. So this could easily take us to the moon. We could set that maneuver up and just coast out there. You might have enough fuel to get yourself into an orbit, but I think you could. I think with this build you could probably sneak yourself up into moon's orbit. So if you want to at least practice here, drop one satellite, go back to the control center, launch another one and try and get one on the moon, go for it. So I'm going to snap in a maneuver because I'm going to make our orbit a little bigger. So what you do, as you can see, it's been putting this dot on the line. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the dot and add a maneuver. Now, what these symbols represent is, first of all, remember, this is where our ship is pointed. This is our direction of travel. This symbol represents the opposite direction of travel. So let me see if I can show you this. We are traveling in this direction. So we're going left to right. And as you can see now, my ship is pointed in the rear. So the engine is pointed forward, and we are traveling left to right with the engine in front. Well, sort of, if I stayed on that marker. So it's traveling this direction, engine's in front. And I know that because the key indicator, the one with the X on it, is the rear motion of travel. So if you imagine a straight line connecting both of these would give you your travel. And there's our maneuver marker, but we don't need to worry about that. All right, let's get back on the marker. And this one now means you're traveling left to right. Engines in the back. Front of the top of the rocket is now going forward. So I think you can understand that's what those green markers mean. Circle with no X is the direction of travel. Circle with the X is the direction you're leaving from. I guess you could think about it that way. So, and as you can see, when you do maneuvers, those same symbols show up. So these indicate the angle of travel. So we stayed on the 90, 270 east-west line, which gave us a nice even line with the rest of the solar system. But say I wanted to line up with this orbit. Let's see, we just had that orbit back there. This orbital line coming through. You could do that by adjusting these. These will adjust your angle. This being the circle direction of travel, that would mean you want to apply throttle to the direction of travel, speeding up. You can see how speeding up would swing out. Or if you want to slow down, you would turn your ship 180 degrees and burn in the opposite direction of travel, which would make you go down. So speed up, slow down. Now these are indicators on which direction the ship would be pointing, as far as up and down, sideways, horizontal, or at an angle. Like we were traveling 15 degrees angle, and then we changed back to a 45-degree angle, and then we went 90 degrees to get the horizontal line. The amount of pitch that the rocket had, that's what these are. This is pitching up, and that's pitching down, I believe. It might be opposite. You'll have to play with that. So let's go ahead, and we already passed that node, so you can't control any nodes that you already passed. So let's go ahead and just do another maneuver. And what like I said before, I want to increase my orbit as far as altitude. Now, I don't really want to burn too much as far as going uphill. I'm going to waste a lot of fuel, so don't want to do that. Let's go ahead and kill that. It's one thing they're not really user-friendly on these controls. So let's go ahead and increase our speed. And what I want to do is increase that speed while I'm just about to crest over. Now you can see here's my current prolapsus. This will be my new prolapsus. So I've got one at 63,000. My new one will be at 223,000. Now what that will tell me to do is now I have to move the ship onto my marker. There's only one marker because you only want to travel in one direction. It doesn't bother telling you going in the opposite direction. There's only one way to go to make this happen. This whole little autopilot happen. So let's go ahead and get ourselves on the marker. It says we have 11 minutes till we need to burn for 9 seconds at this marker. Now, I really don't feel like recording this for 9 minutes. I don't really think you want to watch me for 9 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and use the time key, time warp. So here's our vessel. Our maneuver node is right around here. You can see our time right here. So I'm going to increase the time and go into a time warp. And as you can see, our time is clicking by a little faster. When you break over 60,000 in altitude, you can click up to about a 10 to 100 times warp. But since you're at a lower altitude, it restricts us to the 4 time warps, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and drop this, and let's see if it'll snap us into. Nope. Alright, so let's just increase that. Here's our vessel. Traveling along on its happy little path. Okay, let's see. We're over 60,000. Should give me the extra time warps. Oh, I just broke through. Okay. Anywho's, let's go ahead and reposition ourselves on the marker. Whoa, on the marker. Unfortunately, when you're in time warp, those maneuvers go a little faster, so don't forget to go back to normal speed so you can at least control the ship a little better. Okay, so now we're back on our marker. We'll increase the time so we don't have to wait 5 minutes. We're so far staying on our marker pretty good. Most of the time you don't really drift off. Sometimes you do. So you just gotta watch that, monitor it, and just make sure you don't get too far off your marker. And as you can see, we're getting close to the marker. Our ETA for burn is close to 3 minutes. And Kerbal time, but we're doing a time warp, so it's only gonna take like probably close to 30 seconds. We got close to 2 minutes to our burn. We got a little bit, drifted a little bit off. We're just going to get back on our marker. Increase our time. And usually I drop the time close to 30 seconds. It's usually when I stop it. I'll usually do a double time at 30 seconds, and then it's up to you. I'm just trying to cut the time on the video, so I'm going to cut this a little close. So around 15, I'm going to start cutting this down. We got 7 seconds. Usually I start burning around 1 second. And then we'll go close to a full burn. You'll see how much burn we still need to apply. And this is where the X key will come in quite handy. You'll see when we get close to the end of our throttle, this marker will start to move. I'm going to kill the throttle and get ourselves back on the marker. And then throttle up for the last portion. Hit the X. And now we are done with our maneuver. So you can see the maneuver we planned in dashed lines is now pretty close to where we had it. We should have burned a little longer, but I'm pretty happy at about 900, close to 200. So what we need to do is just go ahead and reach and go around to this side and burn on this side in order to increase this side. So remember, this was the bottom part, but since we got to the top and started going really fast, it shot us out this way. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to wait till we get to the top part, hit the gas, and they'll sling us out this way. And then we cut the gas and coast going uphill. So the most of the time you want to apply throttle on the down side and coast going up. And you can save a lot of fuel by doing that type of maneuver. So let's go ahead and burn while we go up to here. We'll just go ahead and add another maneuver so I can go through that again. Oh, let's get rid of the old, because they'll actually compile maneuvers. So let's get rid of that maneuver. You can see when I got rid of that one, it changed this one. You could do multiple maneuvers as your path. And if you're trying to catch up with another planet, it's pretty good to have multiple maneuvers. But let's go ahead and edit this one. Again, we want to speed up. This is 147, that's 195, take it a little more, 158, 214. And then we can maneuver this closer to the top. So now this is 172, this is 197. We can back off a bit, or we can tip the degree of angle on the rocket. So let's do that. And what we'll do is actually tip up a little bit. That's 143, that's 208. That's 200, that's 132. So you can play with your controls to see if you can get an even orbit. And just keep playing with them. Might have to move this a little bit past the top point. Let's see if we can balance these out. 185, 170, oops, 168, 178, 76. I think I can live with that. For instructional purposes, I think we can live with that. So let's go ahead and time warp. And we got close to a 12-minute ETA with an 8-second burn. And then when we get to that point, we will deploy our lovely satellite. And then we'll be flying around. So at this point, while we're waiting for the 10 minutes to click down, let's go ahead and deploy our radar dish. And then we have our communications antenna somewhere around here. There it is, I think. Nope. Is it on this side? I can't see it. It's closed. Oh yeah. While we're here, and we're still waiting for the 12, we can rename the vessel. So we go rename the vessel. You got the different icons. This is a probe, station, lander, base, debris. I think we're going to probably just still call this a probe. And then we'll do this as Kerbal satellite. So now when I highlight on the path of the vessel, you can see it says Kerbal satellite. It's going to keep the name of the build's name and to you launch it. So you can keep on launching the same build multiple times, but when you go to the tracking station in order to locate it, it's pretty hard when you have all your ships are named the same. So usually when I get something in orbit and I'm pretty happy with the orbit so far, I'll rename the vessel. Now at this point, you can quick save by hitting the F5 key. You'll see it says quick save up here in the corner. And then you can load that by hitting the F9 key. You can say if you hold the F9 key, then you're good to go. So we're getting close to our maneuver point. We don't have our marker anymore. Remember, we want to speed up. So we want to be on the circle with the hash marks that don't go into an X. So we know we want to speed up. So our marker is going to be pretty close to that. There you go. So let's get ourselves back on the marker. And then time warp for the remainder minute 30 seconds. Now since we're at a higher altitude, we can go a lot faster. So you just want to be careful on that maneuver key. See, I went over 47 seconds. I missed the node. But anywho, I think it will still be okay. As you can see, I'm applying the gas at the top of the hill, and that's changing the orbit. So right now our orbits are basically evening out. Hit X to kill the throttle. 188, 165. That's okay. I can deal with that. I think that's a good spot for our satellite. Oh. So let's go back to the ship view. And what I'll do is just go ahead and time warp so we can get on the sun side for the deployment of the satellite. Okay. Now you can't activate any stages while in the time warp, so you got to bring yourself back down to 1. And let's go ahead and deploy this bad boy. You go ahead and activate the separation coupler by hitting the space bar, or you can go ahead and hit it by the decouple option here, but we're going to go ahead and do the space bar. Now we are separate from the other stage. Now what you can do is go ahead and, I'd like to do is to avoid having this now in orbit, because it's going to follow the same orbit. You can use the bracket keys. Those are located by the backspace key. The right and left bracket will let you select to right and left to the nearest ship you are in. So let's go ahead and just switch to the next orbital debris or object. You can see our satellite is still floating out there. But like I said, I want to get rid of this piece of junk. It's going to keep on orbiting. I can get another ship up here and try and push it down, but I'm going to go ahead and use the game function. Hit the escape key and do end flight. Now, end flight means you're ending the flight on whatever object you are currently on. So it could be a tank, a piece of rocket, but if you know that's where your viewpoint is, that's what you're flying at this point, you can end this piece's flight. It will not cancel the whole flight. It will just end this piece. Once it separates, it considers each chunk a separate vessel. So you can end flight, and it goes through the whole basic liftoff. It took about let's see here, close to 52 seconds to get into orbit. Is that right? Yeah, I guess so. Total mission time, 52 seconds before we let go of that stage. So let's go ahead and go to the tracking station. Now you can see Kerbal satellite. It's very helpful to rename these so you know what ship you're going to be selecting. So let's go ahead and select the Kerbal satellite. You can double click. You can abort by erasing it from orbit, or you can fly it. So let's go ahead and fly it. And there we go. There's our satellite in space. I wanted to activate that antenna. Oh, there it is. I just couldn't find it. So right now we're storing electric. We are collecting electric. You can see the energy flow is 1.5 for each panel. We're in direct sunlight. And then we can check out our scientific modules here. Temp is -40. I guess that would be absolute 0. I don't know if that's actually correct. You have no barometric pressure because you're in a vacuum. Duh, it's telling you dummy. Here's your, I can't pronounce it. The tongue tied is kind of accelerationometer. How's that? And gravity. We got like close to 6.2 meters. Doesn't make any sense, but that's what those scientific modules do. They just give you different readings when you turn them on. So there we go. We successfully have our satellite is in a fixed orbit or on Kerbal. It's pretty in line with the rest of the universe and the rest of the solar system's galactic plane, I guess you could call it, for the most part. You can see most of the orbitals start going left and right, but that basically, remember, that's the triangle indicators on the maneuver node. So there you go. Now at this point, I do not want to end flight. If I end flight, we no longer have a satellite in orbit. When you want to leave a ship in orbit and you want to quit the game, do another build, what you need to do is hit the escape key, do not hit the end flight. You want to hit the space center. So I can verify, if we go back to the tracking center, we still have the Kerbal satellite. If I would have hit end flight, it would not be there. So what you need to do is basically you go back to escape key and you go back to the space center. And then you can just go back and launch another one if you want. Change your build a little bit, change your staging, either which way you like it. So sorry about the long build. I'll get more into maneuvers, a couple other things in the next video. Thanks for watching.